Action, action, action. We are back with another reflection on the daily Vedantic. Today's episode is the overview of chapter 3. If you want the foundational background of the Gita, check out, not yesterday, but the day before, chapter 1. I give a bit of the background and set the stage. I mean, I could sonically set the stage for you right now with this as well. This does as good a job as any. Because we preparing for a battle, y'all. And this chapter 3, Yoga of Action, is a continuation of chapter 2, where the first battle is just the one within, where Arjuna is trying, the warrior prince, this famous warrior prince is trying his best to get out of his duty and obligation. And his charioteer Krishna is going to war with that mind of Arjuna's. An important aspect of the Gita is that it is a symbolic conversation between the mind and the intellect. What we want to do and what we ought to do. Arjuna is a representation of the mind, preferences, likes, dislikes, feelings, emotions, and he is freaking out in the midst of a big battle. Krishna, his charioteer, this neutral authority that both sides revere, that is wiser than anyone on the battlefield. He is this neutral authority that is the intellect, that sees, as the intellect is defined in Vedanta, the capacity to see the end in the beginning. He has absolute clarity on what should be done, on what Arjuna should do. That's what he starts to articulate in chapter 2. Chapter 2 is like the overview of what we're going to dive into throughout each chapter. It is kind of like the synopsis on what's really happening, independent or in contrast to what Arjuna thinks is happening. Chapter 2 is called the Yoga of Knowledge, and in this chapter called the Yoga of Knowledge, Krishna is already talking about the importance of action. Now, the entire Gita is this back and forth, head-turning back and forth between knowledge and action, knowledge and action, knowledge and action. And it's one of the most misunderstood aspects of the Gita, because at one point Krishna is saying action, action, action. Another point is saying, no, pursue knowledge, knowledge, knowledge. Knowledge is superior. And this is on purpose, to make us think back and forth, back and forth. A great description is like left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot. That you might be right-footed and have a preference, a wiring for the right foot, and that might be your most powerful foot, but you still need to walk with your left, then your right, left, then your right. You might get more leverage out of your right, or you're left-footed, might get more leverage out of your left. That might be what balances you best. Action might be what you need. Knowledge might be what you need, but we need both. Left foot, right foot. And when Arjuna gets to these points where he's like, well, what should I do right now? And Krishna says action. Or he says, well, what should I do right now? And Krishna says knowledge. It is the right foot and left foot. You can't just get from where you are to where you want to be on one foot alone. But it is topsy-turvy, head-turning. You can also think about it like if you want to leave LA and fly to Austin, Texas, what's more important, the Uber to the airport or the flight from LAX to Austin? Well, both are important. One might actually get you further than the other, but they are both integral, crucial. You can't skip one or the other. And the Yoga of Action, this chapter 3, goes deeper into the integral nature of action in our lives. In many ways, the practical side of this philosophy, kind of guiding us in our day-to-day, you could sum up in 3 words: action, action, action. never shirking from our action, because within action lies our duty and obligations. And my favorite verse from chapter 3, which is the anchor of the entire chapter, is 19, where he says, "Therefore, without attachment, always perform actions which should be done, for by performing action without attachment, man reaches the supreme." We reach perfect state. We reach back to who we really are, a reunion, a union with the divine, a union with the divine through action. But specifically action without attachment. No attachment to an outcome. No attachment to what you're going to get out of it. A selfless pursuit of action. What does that leave us with? When you take out the selfish aspect of our actions, what does it leave us with? It leaves us with pure, unadulterated duty and obligation. As Swami will say often, nothing feels as good as doing what you ought to do. What is important here is the ultimate fruit, the absolute ultimate ideal result comes paradoxically from a renunciation of fruit, but a wholehearted pursuit of action, detached from any thought of fruits or outcomes that will benefit you. And that is why I love Swamiji's phrase of nothing feels as good as doing what you ought to do, because it's not some platitude of do what you ought to do. The community's leaning on you. We need everybody to rise to their duties. No, it actually touches into our selfish nature. Use your selfish nature. Use your pursuit of wanting to feel good inside and tie it to the thing that actually produces that inner state. Nothing feels as good as doing what we ought to do, which is so counter to what the world tells us, where it says, no, feeling good comes from doing what you want to do, being bad. Self-indulgence, that's what makes us feel good. And maybe for a few hours, maybe for a few minutes. But indulge in that second pint of ice cream. See how good you feel an hour later. Indulge in inaction or not exercising or that selfish decision that you're contemplating making at work. Take that action and see if that generates energy within you or if it dissipates energy within you, because the definition of right action within Vedanta, as we touch on quite often, the definition of right action is that which generates energy. Definition of wrong action within Vedanta is that which dissipates energy. So this is not a platitude for, hey, take this ideal action pursuit choice in life because, well, it's the higher self thinks you should. It's not do this because, well, this is a commandment. It's actually quite rational. This is the route to inner peace, to happiness, to feeling good. Nothing feels as good as doing what we ought to do. Nothing feels as good as taking the route of action that has the least bit of selfishness tied to it. And in some crazy, fantastical way, you get to benefit the most from that. This is something that any of us can try out 2 hours from now or an hour from now in that meeting coming up or with a child and some contentious dynamic. 30 minutes from now, try the least selfish approach and see what it does for that circumstance. See what it does for that inner self. That is today's reflection on the Daily Vedantic. Tomorrow we'll tackle chapter 4. We'll see you then.